Live from the Motor City, all the way to the Volunteer State. It's time for the Reckless Speculation Podcast, where we recklessly speculate the latest news in the world of sports. From college football to NASCAR, we've got you covered. And don't forget to stick around for the world-famous Bet Your Nuts, where we will give you your best bets to make the most money. Now sit back, grab your favorite drink of choice, and join Robbie Davis, Raj Mehta, Brandon Chain, and Tom Sloan. It's showtime.
Bro, what's up, bro? I'm back in my native state of California, and apparently we say bro every third word now. Hey, bro, like everybody. And so I just said bro as many times as I could. It's Raj coming to you guys live on a special Monday night, I think. I'm not sure when we're airing this. Oops. But yeah, we're here to discuss what was a massive college football weekend for most. Absolutely massively depressing for me, but also, you know, look forward to what's coming up. And it's rivalry weekend, and we have our Michigan panel of experts, as really there's no greater story in the football world. And I even read an article in the New Yorker about the University of Michigan. And of course, there's that little game coming up against that other team, South, I think, that wears scarlet and gray. So yeah, that whole we're both undefeated, number 2 and number 3 in the country, possibly the national championship game. Yeah, that whole thing. But anyways, I'm going to introduce our guest first, ladies first. She's our special guest. This is her second time on, and we thank her and her 40,000 followers and clicks and intelligence. It just makes us look worse than we already are. Michelle, how are you?
I am great. How are you? Good to see you.
You as well. Just living the dream. I'm sure you're doing the same. How's the weather where you live? I know where, but I won't say it.
A little chilly today. Not as warm as it's been. But still
nice. We got a 72 degrees here, but it's windy, and the wind is really, really chafing me, if you will. I was just kidding. Next, let's go to the next Michigan guy. He's our producer extraordinaire. He's excited. He wears Honolulu blue, and they pulled out another one. Tom Sloan.
Yes, they did. Oh, what a game.
Dude.
Unfortunately, it's the first game we didn't go to. We gave the tickets to her sister-in-law and her nephew. It was his very first Lions game. So what a way to introduce him to Ford Field than a huge fourth quarter comeback. So that was awesome, but definitely looking forward to Saturday. I know Michelle can probably agree with me. It's been stressful and it's probably only going to get worse, but that is the game week in a nutshell.
Yeah. This one more stressful than usual. I'm sure you felt great about your decision giving away those tickets until the last 3 minutes. And then you were like, wow. Yeah. Gives a shit if the kids first. I'm just kidding.
I'm glad I was not there. I'll just say that there's too many Bears fans.
Yeah, there was a lot more than one would think, but it's good to see reality settling back in for them. Mm-hmm. Next, we will go to our resident Ohio State Buckeye, whatever the hell a Buckeye is, some kind of nut.
Hairless nut.
So is he. Ew. Brandon Chain, how are you?
I'm doing well, man. Doing well.
You excited? Because this is the first time in 6 years or 5 years that Ohio State is not favored in the big game.
I think it's 5, and yeah, I'm excited. I'm always excited for this game. This is the best game of the year, in my opinion. The only game that matters. Screw the college football playoffs. This is it for me. So we've lost, obviously, 2 in a row.
Pretty badly, might I add. Pretty
badly. But, you know, we were on an 11-year streak prior to that. So, listen.
What have you done for me lately? But
the Big Ten is better when Michigan and Ohio State are good and they have this rivalry. So, I'm all for it. I love it when they're both good because you never know what you're going to see, what you're going to get. You don't want to go to a game and watch, you know, a beat down one side or the other. So I love it. I'm all for it.
Says you. I'm sure Tom and Michelle are all about it.
Seriously, I quit going to the home games because it was like, it's not like, why would I even go and want, like, I would go to the Penn State game instead, the year before or something. I want to see a good game. I don't want to go spend all that money and hang out and just watch a beatdown. So
trust me, bro. As you guys know, I'm out in my native Southern California, just me without the family. I'm seeing my mom, and I had the chance to come in early and go to USC, UCLA, and something told me don't do it. And I'm really fucking glad I did, because I just have no words. And I think we're going to talk about it. So thanks, Tom. I appreciate that. And with USC Brown, the basketball game, and it was exponentially more entertaining. But no, I'm I can finally say, fuck the Pac-12. We're out. I don't hope we don't even go in a bowl game. And as a Big Ten member, I can't wait for the biggest game of the year. Finally, as someone else who is really excited that it's basketball season, a fellow college basketball lover, fuck football right now. Robert Davis Esquire, how are you, sir?
Hey, I am doing well. The Vols had a huge basketball win today in the Maui Invitational. Now sets up a game against Purdue tomorrow, 8 p.m. So I'm looking forward to it. And to my Big Ten people, so everyone else now, welcome to your 1 week in the spotlight. Enjoy.
Oh, boy.
Dude,
those SEC guys.
It's so rare, actually, like me thinking that, we are Tennessee-based for the most part, except for Tom, who does everything. But, we're just surrounded by SEC folk. And to see Rob is just like a blatant minority, which is just odd in more ways than one, as we all know, is beautiful. But, it's about to go down. So as a Big Ten member, shut up. But anyways, without further ado, I know that, we were going to talk about, before we get into all the good stuff, Tom, you want to take this? The first topic you have is USC gets beat by UCLA. What did you mean by that, Tom?
Well, you can ask Robbie that, because Robbie set the agenda. So go ahead, Robbie, you take it.
Yeah, so, this was one of those kind of wow games to me. It was Chip Kelly talking about getting fired, and Caleb Williams could he get some Heisman potential first-round draft pick, and just like, wow. At the Coliseum, Caleb Williams' last game.
Maybe.
So, Raj, let me just start with you. One, what does this say about kind of where Lincoln Riley sits, and what is the vibe on USC as they head into the Big Ten?
Well, first, I'm going to caution you to stop reading Bill Plaschke. He's a dildo. Because I know that's the first thing you read, and Plaschke was all over Riley. He's a LA Times sports writer who's on Around the Horn. He's a douche. But it was, they had 3 turnovers in the first quarter, which I'd never seen, actually in a long time. Last year they were, I think, top 5 in the country in turnover margin, like plus 21. And it really just masked other things going on. I've said it before and I'll say it again. You need, like Colorado this year, you can get skill players in 1 year with the transfer portal. You can get, a star quarterback. You can't get depth, and you can't get depth across the most important place, which are in the trenches. And USC had done very well recruiting wise, but I just think they got exposed finally. And it's odd because Caleb would kind of set up in the pocket, and that was by intention earlier in the year, but he's just really best, when he's improvising on the run. And, it sort of looked like that was his choice, but it turns out the offensive line is so awful that he was just running for his life. And he does make better plays when he's improvising, but it just all caught up to them. And I have never seen that type of apathy, let alone against UCLA. There was no juice in that stadium, no juice with that team. I'm not ready to blame Lincoln Riley. It's all relative. We had Clay Helton before that. But, his loyalty to Alex Grinch, I've said it before and I'll say it again, was his demise. And that 3-3-5 bullshit gimmick defense. Yeah, 18-8 with 5 losses this year and 1 loss the bowl game where half the team was dead and the other lost to Utah when Caleb got hurt in the first quarter on a 50-yard scramble. So we can qualify it all you want. The bottom line is they're in a better place. I have the utmost faith and confidence in him. It was just his loyalty in that 3-3-5. It's a gimmick defense, and I know they were trying to cover up holes, but they wasted a generational talent, and it's upsetting. I just could not believe how little they cared. And, UCLA is top 5 in the country in rushing defense, and I think SC had 4 rushing yards. So game over. It was pathetic, though.
Yeah. All right, Michelle, I'm going to go to you. You've got 2 Southern Cal schools. We talked about this pre-show. You, Raj, and myself, we all lived in Southern Cal. We know what college football is like there. These are 2 kind of programs that are limping in. They're 2 empty stadiums, just lethargic fan bases. What do you think about what does this Big Ten entrance look like for them? Is there fanfare, or is this more Iowa and Nebraska just coming to the Midwest?
Well, like the inverse, I think, of Iowa, certainly, and that Iowa plays defense. And USC really hasn't. Also, I think Big Ten schools are traditionally a little bit more robust along the lines of scrimmage, and it just doesn't look like USC is bringing that to the table either. I have less concern about SC and UCLA than I do the other 2 schools coming to Big Ten. I think Washington and Oregon are a much bigger threat. I think Michigan plays SC early next year.
It's at week 1 of the Big Ten season.
I think so.
Is it? Oh, they play Texas at a conference, right?
Yeah.
Do they?
No, the big week 1 of conference play.
Okay.
It's USC.
USC. Is it at the Big House?
Yep.
Should know that. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, I feel great. Great, a different option. I think that Michigan, who's just historically been a lot stronger defensively, they lack the offensive explosiveness. I think that some of the newcomers to USC possess. Certainly Zachariah Branch is pretty scary if he is appropriately supported, but maybe it's too soon to say this, but knock on wood, I'm not real scared of USC, and I'm even less scared probably of UCLA. I mean, the fact there was, I think, a little bit of signal to that Chip Kelly firing rumor. Yeah, he pulled it off against a rival and they denied everything, but that's not a particularly stable program either. And I haven't seen enough there to really scare me.
Yeah. So, and this is some coach speak. Tom, real quick, yes or no, does this save Chip Kelly's job? And then the second part of this, does USC have some buyer's remorse with bringing in Lincoln Riley?
Well, the first part, I'll say their major donor, their number 1 donor at UCLA came out and said that they didn't feel like going a different route coaching, leading them into the Big Ten season made any sense. So I think it saved his job between that win and, money talks. So when your lead donor is saying, maybe we don't need to make a coaching change right now. So I think he's safe. And I don't know necessarily if USC has buyer's remorse. I think there's a lot of disappointment, but you got to give him at least 2 more years. The money they invested in him between his contract, between buying his houses in Oklahoma, getting him a house in LA, it's just you don't do all that and then cut ties after 2 seasons. So it just looks bad. But if they do what the rumor has them doing, bringing in Jim Leonard as their defensive coordinator, I think that's going to be a massive upgrade, especially going into the Big Ten where he can recruit Midwest kids since he's a Midwest guy himself. So I think that would be a huge get for USC definitely going into the Big Ten conference.
You can't deny his ability to develop talent. 4 Heisman Trophy winning quarterbacks underneath his thumb. I mean, he is a hell of a coach. But again, defensively, his loyalty to that idiot. If they got Jim Leonard, I'd be doing backflips.
Yep.
Remember, the whole Lincoln Riley thing came together in a day. He was our dream school, like when you're playing at colleges. So he's safe as can be. And yeah, they did invest a lot of money in him, but I for one don't put it on him. Real quick, I know football sells everything, tickets and money, but you're getting a lot more with USC and UCLA and Oregon in terms of national brands, universally national championships. It's Stanford 1, UCLA 2, USC 3, and this is across all sports. Some benefit from warm weather, but the pedigree speaks for itself. So they're bringing a lot of credibility. Everyone but Oregon is academically oriented. Oregon's full of dummies, but no, I think it's a great fit. And yeah, it is more than football, but it's, we had a few recruits say that I want to go to SC because they're going to be playing in the Big Ten and on, those big games. And we're going to need a lot of those Midwestern boys. There's no doubt about that.
Brandon, rank, so of Washington, Oregon, Southern Cal, UCLA, who do you put the one that how do you rank them as the most fearful as it comes to the Michigan, Ohio State duopoly that the Big Ten has?
Right now or over the next 5 years?
I mean, let's say over the next 5 years. Just walk it.
Over the next 5 years, I would say Oregon, USC, Washington, UCLA. Over the next 5, as it transitions. What was it, next year? Then I would say Oregon, Washington, USC, UCLA. But over the next 5 years, they're going to get it right. They're going to change the defense. That's their biggest downfall. Their offensive coordinator is great. Offensive line is not so good. They had some big holes exposed with UCLA. And you know what? How much of this is like season's kind of over? Some of the guys aren't getting up for the game type deal as well. So effort is a question in that. And then, a couple of errant turnovers there changes the whole layout of the game. So I think Lincoln Riley is fine in his position there at USC. They're going to be fine. They're going to recruit, and they're going to be a big competitor in the Big Ten.
As the Big Ten announced, are they doing the pod system? Or are they doing East-West still? Have they announced yet?
Divisions are done.
Okay, so they're going to do some kind of pod system or like matchup.
I think so.
Rivals. Yeah. So, because I was going to say, because USC's schedule will get easier if they're in the West Division, but if the divisions are done, and it sounds like they're playing Michigan week 1, so it's going to get harder.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. But, they've got to mix it up a little bit because it's heavy right now on one side, and it's so hard to watch like a Penn State or an Iowa every year get to the Big Ten championship. It's like it's disgusting. So
Iowa
I'm happy
scores
to have
15
them.
Points and wins this past week.
I'm happy to have them. So it's going to be better for the Big Ten as a whole for sure.
All right, Tom, I'll pass off topic 2 to you.
Well, it's rivalry week, as we all know. And the lineup isn't the greatest, we'll say, outside of the game. But you have Washington State, you have Washington, Oregon State, Oregon. Michelle, of these rivalry matchups, which one do you see as being actually competitive and has the maybe the higher risk of an upset? I include Florida State in there now too, because with Travis done for the year, I think that kind of levels the playing field a little bit.
The one I see most likely to produce an upset is maybe the Oregon game, only because I think Oregon State is the best of the challengers to that group. I just don't see Washington State derailing Washington. I think it's unlikely, although weird things happen in the Iron Bowl, and this one is with Jordan Hare, I know. I just think this Alabama team is rolling. They're peaking at the right time. Oregon State's still a really solid team, though. And the weather was weird against that game. Washington, it was tight, came down to the wire. I think Oregon is playing better than Washington, but that game was close too. And I think last year we saw Oregon State upset Oregon, ruin its season. I wouldn't be shocked to see it again. I actually rewatched that game this summer, like a real weirdo. And
with DJ I'm not going to try and pronounce his name.
No, I always say DJ.
I've watched it. I've watched it many times, but with him, he's hot or cold. I don't think there's like a middle ground with him. Last week he showed flashes, but then when they needed him to make a play there in the fourth, he just kind of faltered. Maybe weather was a factor in there. Brandon, I guess the talk of the Pac-12 lately has been Arizona with Jed Fish, a former offensive coordinator at the University of Michigan. Seems to have turned around that program. This game going up against Arizona State could be a trap game. It's at Arizona State. They're coming off now 4 straight wins. What do you see playing out in this game? Can they keep rolling and really kind of exert themselves toward the top of the Pac-12?
I think they can. I know it's at Arizona State, but like you said, the last 4 games, what they've done, what they've accomplished, man, this team is on fire right now. And, we'll get to this later on the Bet Your Nuts, but I don't see Arizona State coming close to upsetting them this game.
Robbie, you're the SEC guy. Michelle mentioned Alabama, Auburn. Auburn coming off just a brutal loss to New Mexico State where they actually paid them $1.8 million to play. Is that the type of loss that can completely wipe out confidence if there was any going into this game? Or are they able to just kind of like, throw it off, write it off, and then be prepared for Alabama?
I think this is a season going 2 different directions. I think that it's kind of Auburn. They won 3 straight conference games, albeit to less remembered teams. Just laid the egg at home against New Mexico State. Paid them $1.8 million to come play this game. This is what everyone criticized the SEC for is this week about, no one play. You don't play. It's just essentially a bye week before the rivalry week. And Auburn just laid an egg. I think this is just, even though it is, at Jordan-Hare, as Michelle said, always a tough place to play. I think students that were on the fence are probably heading home for Thanksgiving. The biggest SEC game to me is FSU at Florida at night. No starting quarterback. I think this is the one the college football fans in general want because no one wants Florida State in the playoff with that resume. We want them out, and let's get the 4 best teams in there.
Yeah, and we'll talk about the college football playoffs here. Raj had to step away, so we'll kind of jump ahead here and talk about expectations. The past 3 rankings have been pretty much expected, with one change last week, Georgia and Ohio State flipping. This week, I don't see many changes coming into play, with the exception of, like you mentioned, Robbie, Florida State. And Michelle, I'll start with you. That injury was gruesome. If anyone saw it, I'm sorry. Normally I can't watch stuff like that, and it was one of those like, didn't mean to watch it, but there it was. But you hate for that kid. He was a 6th-year college player, having a great season, leading Florida State to a potential college football berth. Is an injury like that? Is that something? Even let's say they even run the table. but could an injury to your star player, could the committee actually look at that and keep them out of the CFP?
The committee has claimed that they do not, that they are not forward-looking. I know there have been calls for them to exclude Florida State from the playoff because Florida State has looked weak and struggled at times, even with Jordan Travis. And I think nobody wants to see a blowout in the playoff. But I personally think if they run the table, especially with Jordan Travis out, they deserve a spot. I watched, I think it's Rodemaker. He looked okay. They came back from a 13-point deficit without Jordan Travis, took control of the game. There's enough talent around that team as well. I mean, the defense has been fairly solid. The receivers are good. They've got a strong run game. There are other aspects. I mean, I know that Jordan Travis was the centerpiece, but I think they deserve to be there if they go undefeated. You just cannot credibly exclude a Power 5 conference champion from the playoff unless at this point they're not going to be, though, right? We don't have an undefeated Big 12 champion. That's just not something that's going to be presented. So at best, we're looking at an undefeated Pac-12 champion, an undefeated Big 10 champion, undefeated SEC champion, maybe. And then if they are an undefeated ACC champion, I think they should be in.
Robbie, I think the ACC really is the one to really watch.
Yeah.
Well, Louisville's been one heck of a story. Go ahead.
Well, yeah. So it's interesting though, and Michelle, because they said the committee in the past has said they won't they won't penalize you for injuries retrospectively, but they haven't. I don't know if there's been a discussion yet where they've said, "Hey, proactively, your best player is out for the season. Are we still putting you in?" Not that I could be wrong. I just can't remember.
There's precedent for it with Ohio State in the first ever college football playoff ranking, right? Ohio State was on his third string quarterback.
Who else was in that mix? Do you guys remember?
Ohio State was controversial because I don't even think they were a conference champion. Were they?
No, we lost the conference championship that year.
Yeah.
Or no.
No,
we beat Wisconsin. Yeah. Like 52.
Yes, it did.
Heck, you had a bad loss.
Oh, that was the Baylor TCU.
We lost to Virginia Tech the second week in the season that year.
It was Baylor and somebody.
Then we beat
co-champions.
Yeah, we beat Wisconsin in the Big Ten championship 53-0, and
that's right.
Was that's what put us into the college playoff.
Yeah, so that'd be the closest analogy what we have right now with Florida State.
But it was also a Big Ten champion, so that's it changes things. The conference champion holds weight, right?
If Florida State is the ACC champion, and the question is, do they have to win by that margin, right? Does it have to be a blowout?
I don't think so. I don't think you should punish them. Like if they go, and they win their conference championship with a backup, again, we're all judging. It's just like putting Michigan under the thumb before evidence came out. Like we're judging before this Tate Rodemaker backup guy has anything to prove.
Yeah.
Like he was 13 for 23, 217 yards and 2 TDs, came back, won the game. I mean, is he Jordan Travis? Probably not. But can he be special in a short amount of time? Maybe. I mean,
I can't wait to hear y'all.
He's got a fair chance.
Change about who loses this weekend. They're going to be like, get Florida State out of here. They suck.
No, my opinion won't change. I've already went through this conversation in my head like 27 times. So
I love the game.
Louisville had a tough go with Miami. Miami gave them everything they had. They're the interesting team here. So if they run the table, Brandon, if they end up with the ACC championship, do you see anywhere where they're sitting right now, them moving up enough to get into the CFP?
Louisville?
Yeah. No. Well, that was what I asked that because I believe it was Joel Klatt
No.
On his show last week said that was the one team that nobody's really talking about. That
for good reason.
You can't
well,
lose Pitt.
Exactly, and that was the
like I mean, come on,
what everyone was saying. Well, if you don't lose the Pitt, I mean, if we're talking about an undefeated Louisville team, I think they're closer to 8, maybe 7 at that point. But
but if they win the ACC, right, they're against a contrary to what I just advocated for, right? Florida State with a backup quarterback. So then you can flip that whole script and have an argument on the other side, right? So then Louisville absolutely should not get in because they lost to Pitt. And then you're gonna have this whole SEC fiasco going on between Alabama and Texas. I mean, Alabama and Georgia. And then Texas is another one up there. If they win, I mean, what do you do with them? And then what if, say that Michigan beats Ohio State and then loses to Penn State and then
Iowa
in the Big Ten championship. Then you got a whole nother. That's what I'm saying. There's so many, reckless speculations that we can go down.
Just off the top of my head, who deserves in over Louisville? 1 loss Michigan, 1 loss Ohio State, 1 loss Georgia,
Oregon,
1 loss Washington, 1 loss Oregon, 1 loss Alabama, 1 loss
I
Texas.
just think it's a tall mountain to climb. It's a great story, and I think moving forward, I think that's a program that you have to take serious. Because their new coach, his name escapes me.
Brom.
Yeah, Brom, who was the coach at Purdue. Who turned Purdue around. I mean, Michelle and I know well about Purdue. They gave Michigan everything they could handle in that first half of the Big Ten
I know well about
game.
Purdue.
But I think this is a program that is definitely on the up and up. And I'll bring Raj back in here. Real quick, we'll go around the table. Give me your top 4, what you think will happen tomorrow.
Oh, is that when the rankings come out? Because I'm boycotting football. But
yes.
No, I don't think there'll be any changes from last week. I mean, well, the AP had already had Washington in. Well, actually, the AP came out today, didn't they? So they obviously took into account the injury to Jordan Travis.
Mm-hmm.
Now, at least the playoff can use that as pseudo rationalization. That, hey, this is on paper a better team. We're not talking about an injury here. I think when Washington won last night or Saturday night in Corvallis, which I said is just fucking pure voodoo, they showed me a lot. And they were able to stop the run, which is the knock on them. That is a tough place to win. And this is a different Washington team. They're not the one that got in a few years ago and got their ass kicked. I would have it the same as the AP. 1 Georgia, 2 and 3. I don't care. Flip-flop them all you want. Same teams. We'll find out this Saturday, and then Washington. And then I would have Oregon. And that's regardless of Jordan Travis's injury.
Yeah, I think I agree. Well, I think this is where you start. This is where you start playing a little politics. I got Georgia 1. I got OSU 2. Michigan 3. Because if Michigan loses, you bump them out far enough to keep the Harbaugh drama out of the playoff. Mm-hmm. Then I think this is the week they move Washington above FSU. They've got justification for it, and they want FSU out also.
Brandon.
Sorry.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm struggling between Washington and Oregon a little bit on the number 4 spot. I think right now Oregon is a better team. Their offense is dynamic. Dan Lanning, what he's done there, it's just impressive. Washington struggled a little bit last week early, and they came back, obviously won the game, I guess
beat Oregon.
They did beat Oregon,
but at home.
earlier in the season at home.
Yeah.
And if you go by the eye test at this point, it's the same thing like the Alabama-Texas talk, right? Alabama is clearly eye test a better team than Texas right now, but they did lose the game. So there's some merit to that. And I'm sure the committee, being political, has got to take everything into consideration, and that's what's going to happen. I don't see Oregon moving ahead. I think Washington stays at the 4th spot. Obviously, Florida State has to fall. They can say they're not looking ahead due to injury all they want, but they're human, and this is a TV show, and a lot of money's on it, and people want to see their team in, and I think Florida State falls to 5.
What were you going to say, Raj?
I was just going to ask everyone, do you guys think that improvement over the season, within reason, should be considered? For example, Alabama with a brand new quarterback, half the guys got drafted. I mean, Jalen Milroe has turned into an absolutely different player, and that is a team that right now I think somewhere belongs in that top 4 or 5. Even though I hate
they
Bama,
might be the best team in the country.
No, they could be.
I hate them, and they sneak in. And the last time they snuck in, I thought it was bullshit. But this is what it's about to me. They came together. This kid led them. He got benched, and all the guys were huddled around him as their leader, even though Buckner was a starter. And now he's playing, what do you have, 6 touchdowns the other day?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they've improved a ton over the year. And, the same with, Georgia and Ohio State for that matter. And I have theories about that, those teams, just like Alabama, that their defenses just have to carry them, keep them in games enough until guys like McCord and Milroe and Beck can figure it out. And those are the teams that are getting better. And I hate to say this, but I don't see Michigan getting any better. How could they with everything they've been through?
Yeah.
But should that be considered?
I think so.
Yeah, I absolutely think it should. I mean, that's the epitome of college football, right? Especially when you're in the top rankings and you lose half your team to the NFL or half of your starters, let's say. Absolutely. Chemistry is a big deal. And, we've seen this in Colorado. You can't just throw a bunch of transfers and recruits out there that are 5 stars and been big players and then make magic and chemistry happen, because it just doesn't.
Michelle, who's your top 4?
All right. Well, I have a counterpoint to that argument, which is that Oregon took basically its entire defense through the transfer portal, and they made it work. Their defense looks pretty good right now. So I think it's
touche.
If you can portal and create culture and stability, notwithstanding the new faces, you can do okay. But Colorado just did it wrong, in my view.
It helps when you average 50.
Yeah, I agree. But
I hear
as a general consensus, when you lose draft picks, it's about formulating that chemistry, right? And getting better. I'm sorry?
Having a strong leader, right? That's
absolutely.
Alabama, that's what Ohio State, as much as I hate to admit it. They had a pre-existing culture already for those guys to slot into, to grow from. And I think that's the difference that we see with Colorado.
The other thing with Oregon, though, is to consider. I agree with you, but they plugged holes brilliantly. Guys like Jordan Burch.
Strategically, yes.
And very strategically. And not only that, even though he's kind of a douche, Dan Lanning is a brilliant defensive mind. And he got the guys he wants and needs. And I agree with you. But I do think there's a bit of an asterisk by what Oregon did. They tried the same thing a year ago, and they got better at it. But no, I understand your point. There are some other factors, as we all know. I'm not saying you're saying that's a blanket statement, but it can be done. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. My top 4, though, to answer the original question, I think, like everyone said, I would slot Oregon in over Florida State. I think you can do that credibly just based on the fact that Washington had a top 10 win on the road. It's pretty impressive, especially in those conditions. Florida State had a little bit of a struggle early on. I don't think you have to take the injury into account at all to justify Washington hopping Florida State.
So you got Georgia 1, then 2. Who's 2 and 3?
Ohio State 2. I think they earned the right to stay at 2, notwithstanding the fact that Michigan had a better win against Minnesota than Ohio State did on the road in Minneapolis. Not that I'm counting.
We're splitting hairs.
Benchmark program, Minnesota Golden Gophers.
Hey, Michelle is preparing to one day be a committee member, and she's going to be out there in front talking to
already
Greg Herbstreit,
overqualified.
explaining these picks.
Because I watch the games, and that's
and you obviously have a brain, and that's two things that disqualify you from being a committee member.
Oh,
Well, I'm gonna throw a monkey wrench in this whole thing. The name of this show is Reckless Speculation, and I am a firm believer that the committee does not like Michigan, and that performance, largely 3 out of the 4 quarters that graciously I had to listen, which is probably worse than watching. Michigan's play-by-play guys are like terrible. I digress. They're not very good. But anyways, I was driving, so I had to listen to that game. Horrible. Outside of that defense, what they did in the first half, which was amazing, scoop and score, block punt. I mean, they put the offense in position to take that game and run with it, and they didn't. I think that's going to cost them. So I think we're going to go Georgia, Ohio State. I think Washington's win on the road, like you said, Michelle, in a ruckus environment, in that weather. Number 11, Oregon State. I think they leapfrog Michigan. I think Washington's in at 3, and I think Michigan goes to 4. And I'm still holding on to my theory that even though the committee says we're not holding Michigan accountable for the Harbaugh situation, I firmly believe they are. And I agree with you, Robbie. I agree that they're putting them far back on that list. So if they were to lose, there's no talk of them joining or getting into the CFP.
I was about to go ahead, Michelle.
I just got to say that would be insane because Michigan struggling was Michigan leading the entire game after other than that early field goal by Maryland, they led the entire game. Their defense looked incredible versus Washington, who we have seen struggle time and time again. They were in a tight game with freaking Stanford. Like, to penalize Michigan for one slip up when Michigan has been absolutely dominant throughout. Sorry, I'm getting so worked up by this.
Well, that's good. That's good.
No, it's what it's all about.
But like Washington has looked iffy. They've had to rely on their defense multiple times this season. Yeah, they had a good win, but also Michigan had a great win the week before against Penn State, and I think was not adequately rewarded for that. So
they should have lost to Arizona State. It was 15-7, and they needed a pick 6 to beat Arizona State at home. So, yeah. And another thing, by the way, Michelle is absolutely right about. I just looked it up real quick about Oregon, and this is why this show is different than others because we do this because we're dorks. But Oregon's transfer portal, number 1 leading tackler, Evan Williams, transfer Fresno State. Number 2, Tysheem Johnson, transfer Ole Miss. Best DB, arguably, Kyrie Jackson, transfer Alabama. And then we all know their sack leader. He's actually not. Brandon Dorlus was there, but Jordan Birch has been a difference maker, transfer from South Carolina. Those are 4 plug-and-play starters that were taken from the portal that have just obviously changed that defense. So, yeah,
this is where it gets tricky because the powers that be. You looked at the headlines today as I was getting ready for the show. It says Michigan escapes Maryland, not Michigan dominated the whole game.
It's timing.
It was a close game, and so like they're plotting. I just think they don't want. Michigan
You're right. I can put my blue and on hat on and say that people are out Michigan.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I heard that. I heard that phrase. I was watching Sam Webb on the Michigan Insider podcast, and he had been called a blue and on. I think
if you look up the history on Twitter, I was the first to say blue and on.
Oh,
take credit for it.
We could have a 6-hour show about how ESPN hates Tennessee more than anyone else ever.
Not now.
We go way back with ESPN hating us.
It's interesting with game day coming to Ann Arbor. They're already plotting on Twitter to not show up, although that I know that won't happen. But they better be on high alert. The signage is going to be ugly for ESPN. I don't believe Pete Thamel will
I'm
show
surprised
up.
they're going there. Actually,
I heard Pete's not going.
And I wouldn't be surprised if Pat McAfee gets a pretty bad response, because he was one of the loudest ones chirping that Michigan shouldn't be allowed in the college football playoffs. So it's going to get ugly in Ann Arbor when they come to
I'm
town.
shocked they're going there.
Do you guys want to talk about the game, or do we want to get into legality of what's going on right now in Michigan? Should we go to the game first?
You can lead in.
Is there any more legality to discuss?
Yeah, I think it's done.
It's pretty much done. I just wanted to address that. Well, let me ask you this, Michelle. Harbaugh accepted the Big Ten suspension, more or less. It's been posed that he gave up. Number one, is that the case? And number two, does the NCAA still have potentially something more to say about this?
For sure, the NCAA still has something to say about this. They've not even issued a notice of allegations to Michigan, which would give Michigan 90 days to respond. We all know that that process is going to take months, if not years. It's not giving up, I don't think. Although I think I had speculated before the Partridge news came out about him destroying evidence that the reason Michigan appeared to capitulate in this discussion, because I think we had talked last week about Michigan reaching a settlement. First of all, if you're not a practicing lawyer, you don't realize that basically every civil action settles, and every civil settlement agreement has a provision in there where everybody says this is not an admission of guilt or wrongdoing. Everybody knows this, except for the Twitter universe, who are not lawyers, who think that Jim Harbaugh admitted guilt.
Yeah.
Check his DNA. That's what the Twitterverse is like. Get his sperm and DNA and find out right now, because that's what.
Like, he didn't admit guilt. He didn't do that, and I'm sure
you dealt with that on your post, Michelle. You know, it seemed like
Buckeye
Nation
so bad.
Yeah.
Was that strategic? What he did?
To echo what Michelle says, so I'm a plaintiff's attorney, and every release, every order of compromise and dismissal we say there's no admission of guilt, there's no admission of liability. This is just a compromise for the best of both parties. And even if we get an admission, it's under the seal of extra consideration for confidentiality. Like, never, I've been doing this for 10 years. I've never had an admission of liability and so Jim Harbaugh, well, not Jim Harbaugh, the University of Michigan were the plaintiffs in this case. Jim Harbaugh was an agent of the University of Michigan as a person that was an aggrieved party. So yeah, this is not odd at all for this kind of settlement to be reached.
The other thing I think, Robbie, you would know, and all the attorneys on the call would know, is that they said Michigan withdrew. They didn't settle. And one thing I had to explain to people is that first you settle and then you withdraw.
Yes.
As a condition of the settlement.
Because if you withdraw first, then you can't settle.
Yes. And then you withdraw. And also that Michigan was the plaintiff in the litigation. They initiated the litigation against the Big Ten for breach of contract. And people just absolutely lost their goddamn minds when I said that Michigan agreed to dismiss the lawsuit against the Big Ten. Everybody wanted to believe Michigan admitted guilt. I had people coming at me who worked in criminal court. They were like, oh no, I've seen a ton of plea deals. Like, they definitely had to admit guilt.
Yeah. So even if the plaintiff settled for $20 million, it would still be an order of compromise and dismissal.
Yes.
And that's what the judge signs off on.
Stay out of the weeds here. Order. I want you guys to get your opinion on this. The Big Ten afterwards, I don't know if they were placating or patronizing. I'm not sure, but they basically said that today's decision by the University of Michigan puts it on them to withdraw its legal challenge against the conference's November 10th notice of disciplinary action is indicative of the high standards and values that the conference and the university seek to uphold. That's what the Big Ten said in a statement. Another political move. Why is this even necessary? Shane, let's go with you. Like what the fuck is this about? Like, why do they even bother? Just
so the Big Ten is trying to save face here, and where they got beat in Michigan let them off, in my opinion. Michigan chose to just take the spotlight out and deal with what this is and call it a day instead of dragging this out through court. The irreparable harm conversation was a big deal. I think that could have made a lot of headway. And there's a lot of people talking about that, after we especially talked about on this show, having you two lawyers. I had no idea what that was. I had to look it up afterwards, but it's all good. I do now. And
just nerdy talk.
Yeah. So to me, it looks like Michigan settled and kind of let the Big Ten off instead of pursuing this and dragging this out and being just an ugly shit show and a bad Big Ten spectacle. Like I said on our emergency broadcast, Fox has something to say in this behind the scenes with their contracts and TV contracts. They do not want this to go sour and spoil anything relative to the Big Ten, especially with big markets coming in like USC, UCLA, Washington, Oregon. Like, we want to keep the Big Ten clean, and this is a prided and respectable conference, and blah 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 blah. So yes, this was settled quickly, in my opinion, due to what could potentially happen and how ugly it could have gotten.
In getting to that, Michelle and Tom, Bruce Feldman stated on Big Noon, Fox, whatever they call it, that a source told him that he would not be surprised if something came down next year, sort of intimating that a lengthy suspension for Harbaugh. I'm going to ask, number one, to Michelle, how realistic is that? And sort of how does that play with what the Big Ten has done for everybody out there? And then number two, Tom, hypothetically, if that happened, what's next for Harbaugh? But starting with Michelle, how realistic could it be that Harbaugh gets suspended?
From everything I've read, I think that Big Ten at least has said they are not going to they're going to conclude their investigation in Michigan, which is great news for the players. They can focus on the game. But then also I think they intimated that unless there's knowledge of this running to the top, they're done penalizing Michigan. And they've also said they have no evidence of it running to the top. Even the Partridge thing was based on destruction of evidence, not knowledge of the scheme, which is good.
Can you hit on that real quick? Because that's more where there's smoke, there's fire. Another guy got canned or reprimanded right before a game. Like, this is so weird.
Yeah, no, that was huge. I mean, that's not been discussed with regard to the Maryland game, but I think it's a pretty material fact that they fired their linebackers coach,
who's an unbelievable recruiter,
the day before a game.
Yes, yep. Incredibly material, right? That is huge. And as I understand it, the reason Partridge was let go was because he tried to interfere with the investigation by destroying evidence, not because he had prior knowledge of Stallion's vast network or Stallion's efforts scouting, which is an important distinction. It's an important distinction because if he had knowledge, I think that's more detrimental to Michigan and Michigan's future than if he interfered with the investigation. It's different. So in terms of next year and the NCAA's punishment, I've said this before, I'll say it again. I think there's a real possibility that the NCAA has to revisit the in-person scouting rule altogether due to the fact, A, that the NCAA has said this doesn't really confer a material advantage when it's looked at the rule previously, that it almost repealed the rule. It's an antiquated rule. The fact that everyone's doing it, I think there is a lot more information that Michigan in particular has that will come out about the in-person scouting efforts of other teams, not just in the Big Ten, but elsewhere. To the extent it doesn't seem like in-person scouting really even confers any advantage at all, I think they're going to have a hard time laying the hammer down on Michigan, especially because, also the in-person scouting thing may prompt an antitrust challenge.
Dun, 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 dun.
Can you hit that in one sentence? Because this is a ridiculously complicated, well, it could be. But for those out there that have no idea what you're talking about, how could this amount to an antitrust challenge?
So there's a University of Michigan law professor who has said the in-person scouting rule is anti-competitive in a way that violates antitrust law. By the way, the Supreme Court has it out for the NCAA. They've indicated this in their unanimous opinion on NIL, and then Kavanaugh's concurrence. Kavanaugh wants to take down the NCAA. If he gets a chance, I think he'll do it on the right procedural posture. So the NCAA has to be careful.
They're fucking fascist. That's why. Oh, sorry. Not the Supreme Court. The NCAA.
The NCAA has to be incredibly careful with how it proceeds against Michigan, because there are larger dynamics at play that make it very risky to, frankly, even continue to have this rule in the books and then to enforce it to the detriment of student athletes.
And just one little
here, folks. Only here.
One little footnote to that. So generally, you only see a 9-0 Supreme Court decision in something that's so absurd. To have a 9-0 decision in something as complicated as NCAA, like they realize like how effed up the system is, and to say,
to your point, I think that's why the NCAA hasn't made a move towards anything right now.
Yeah.
They're treading on thin ice with zero power, and they know it.
Yeah.
At this point. So
I'm coming back to you, Rob. Sorry, Chan, I didn't mean to interrupt, but
no, you're good.
But Tom, just hypothetically, if he gets suspended, I know Jim Harbaugh was a quarterback for a certain team from 87 to 93. Longest tenure of his career was with the Chicago Bears. Mm-hmm. Could Harbaugh end up in Chicago? And is there anybody else, wink, wink, that maybe interested? Is a possibility of Harbaugh to them?
Well, I think
if this all
when you look at the scenario here, Chicago might have the first two picks in the draft next year. So that is something to look at. But what I'm hearing is that the Raiders are extremely interested, and he's extremely interested in the Raiders. Now, when you stop and look at it, who's got part ownership with the Raiders? Tom Brady. Who's a former legend with the Raiders? Charles Woodson.
Shut your mouth. Forever legend.
Charles Woodson. Well, I'm saying former player, legend, Charles Woodson. Where did Tom Brady and Charles Woodson go to school? The University of Michigan. So I think there's a lot of dynamics.
That's still the greatest interception I've probably ever seen.
So there's a lot of dynamics. There's a lot of dynamics at play. I think 2 years ago, the thought of Jim Harbaugh going to the NFL, there wasn't 32 teams that would even take a risk at him. This year, I think you have the Bears, you have the Raiders, you have the Carolina Panthers, and you have the Los Angeles Chargers. So I think there's 4 legitimate teams that could throw an offer out at Michigan. And now you look at the situation to where, all right, let's say, hypothetically, the NCAA drops down a punishment on Harbaugh for Cheeseburger Gate. And now they get some sort of a punishment for what happened with Matt Weiss with the FBI investigation. Do they come down on him as the head of the snake per se? He should have had a stronger hold of his organization. Who knows? And now this latest situation. So are we looking at another season of half of the games missed, Harbaugh? Now, does he want to go through that? And does the university want to go through that? That's going to be the thing to talk about, what's going to kind of lead into this. And if Michigan wins the national championship, I think all questions are out the window. I think he absolutely is gone. But it's all going to come out, whether or not he's going to miss multiple games. And the quote I heard was a significant portion of next season he could miss. And that was the interview that you referred to, Raj. So I can speak for myself. I can speak for JP, who was on the show last week. It's kind of old hat, old news. We're kind of talking about the same thing over and over again with Harbaugh. I just want to talk football.
Right.
And the reality is we really haven't done that outside of this year. So it'll be interesting because I think there's 4 teams that will make a big push for Harbaugh.
So Tom, let me ask you this. If the premise is he leaves Michigan, are you sure he goes to the NFL?
Yes. Yeah.
Because
I could be done with the NCAA and their bullshit.
Well, no. I could see a scenario where
Don't say Texas.
No.
A&M.
No. I'm just saying.
Well, Michigan or nothing.
Michigan or nothing.
Right.
Well, because the suspensions are going to follow him if he stays in college.
Okay.
I don't see that making any sense.
He's going to go to the CFL?
Well, no. I'm saying if they can't link him to Michigan, and let's just say he just says, "Hey, I'm just this." There's a lot of smoke here. I'm not sure. Like, look, there's not 15 quarterbacks that are capable of playing professional football to win the NFL. So if you're one, I'm not sure he likes to lose, and so. Would you say, hey, this Michigan stuff's a lot of fire? Like maybe I get a restart somewhere else, and do I just don't know.
He loves a challenge.
I'm not sure if it's NFL or bust for him. Is what I think.
Well, here's another thing. He loves JJ McCarthy. JJ McCarthy might be his favorite quarterback he's ever worked with, and if you put him with the Raiders, there's a realistic opportunity that he could draft him in the first round. But maybe
Andrew Luck was pretty good.
And I'm going to have to be a Raiders fan. It's going to be awful.
Hell yeah.
I think it makes.
I hope you guys like my Los Angeles Raiders t-shirt.
Yeah.
I think it makes sense for him to go to the Raiders, and it
yes,
pains me to say that because I'd love to see him here in Michigan. But I as things keep going, I don't know if that's going to happen. So,
all right, real quick, yes or no? Jim Harbaugh is the coach for Michigan in 2025, not next year, the year after. Michelle.
Hell yes.
I should have gone to her last. That's a walk-off. Rob.
Yes.
Tom.
I don't think so.
Shane.
Yes, I don't think he's going anywhere.
Does anyone think he's gone next year? Because I do. I think they could win it all, and I think he is sick of their bullshit. He loves a challenge, and I think, like I was going to ask Rob, Bruce Pearl got busted because he lied to the NCAA. I think if anyone believes that Harbaugh or Partridge or anybody else didn't know about this, then they're fooling themselves. That's my opinion. But it's not what you know, it's what you can prove. And Harbaugh is too smart to get busted knowing that. I think he's just sick of this bullshit where he should go to a real capitalistic, free market, do whatever the fuck you want system like the NFL.
I think the Michigan move, this Michigan legal move, wasn't a threat to the Big Ten. I think it was a warning shot to the NCAA that we will move forward. If y'all want to play, we know where the court lies.
The NCAA has little wieners, and not to be misogynistic, but they like to take a shot at the biggest dog, and it goes all the way back. Yes, it's personal for me, Reggie Bush and USC. They hit them with a lack of institutional control, which is so stupid. And like I said, Harbaugh's been suspended twice in 1 year for 2 different things.
That have not been concluded.
That have not been concluded. And still no resolution because that's the NCAA. They're basically like the United Nations.
Started yet. They haven't even set up shop.
I could just see Harbaugh being totally sick of it all. But he would not want to let down his kids. And that's my opinion. But I wanted to move on here to the actual game itself. Last week Michigan didn't look good. But my contention is they're the only team ever that not only was looking behind at all that bullshit in Penn State and Sharon Moore having, the emotions come to a head and looking forward to Ohio State. So it was kind of a no-win situation, which they won. I'm not going to judge them on one game, but Michelle, what is the Michigan? Are you concerned about the mindset of this program going into the biggest game of the year?
I am not supremely confident, but I am not deeply concerned. So
Looking like a true turn.
I'm old enough to remember last year when Michigan had a little bit of a stumble against Illinois heading into the Ohio State game. And by the way, that was a lot closer game than this one, right? We needed a Moody to pull
At home.
At home.
Corum with an injury.
That's right. There were Corum went out. So I am. There are just so many factors, and I am like superstitious as hell. I don't want to jinx anything. I don't want to be overconfident. That's just not how I am, or who. It's not
but
who
you are. You're just afraid to say it.
But I will say that there are just a lot of factors that are aligning here to help me feel better about Michigan. You know, it is at the big house, which is a huge advantage in a game like this, especially with a first-year starter like Kyle McCord, who's looked a little bit shaky in other environments. But in terms of the mindset of the team, we'll get to kind of the analytics of the game later. But in terms of the mindset of the team, I do think that having Harbaugh there during the week for practices, to be able to coach them, inspire them, lead them, you know, be the figure that they need him to be for all but 2 hours on Saturday is huge. And they honestly, they love Sharon Moore too. So I am, like I said, not overly confident, but not overly concerned.
We can't underestimate a coach's impact during the game, but there is this weird backward sense of massive inspiration and motivation that all these guys are alluding towards. Well, I know Harbaugh will be right there when we get off the bus to give us a hug and, you know, win one for the Gipper type thing. And that's huge for them right now. I mean, Sharon Moore, you know, we were talking about Caleb Williams, and I kind of wanted to bring this up in something we had discussed, which is outdated. But, you know, when Sharon Moore had his tears, he was just so overcome with emotion. And to me, that says so much about that program, about Jim Harbaugh, what he means to them, about that moment. I mean, no one knows what it's like to become a head coach in a day and take over the biggest game of the year. So in a weird way, I mean, I do have to think about that and his effect on the program before I start putting him on the Raiders, because he is Michigan football, and whatever he does, it's brilliant. And the relationships he has with players and coaches is rare. And I'm going to be a homer here, but Pete Carroll's probably the last guy I've seen like this, other than maybe Saban, but Saban's God, so it's kind of different. But no, I mean, it is very inspiring. That being said, you know, I think there were some articles about, you know, in-game mistakes that have been made by Sharon Moore, by every coach. But yeah, this is going to be a tough one. And I wanted to get to you guys, and let me start with Tom here then. What advantages, I was going to go to Chain, but it's 2 against 1. So, and Robbie will be against Chain because that's how they are. So I got your back, Chain. But what advantages does Michigan have Saturday? And no voodoo, no karma. Don't be afraid to say something. You'll jinx them. I know we're all like that, unfortunately.
One thing I'm going to hit on real quick about Sharon Moore. You got to keep in mind, he's your head coach, he's your offensive coordinator, and he's your offensive line coach. So he's wearing 3 hats all at the same time. And, you know, he's going into what will be his 4th career game head coaching the football team. So I think that weighs a lot on him and was a big reason to the emotions. But I have to agree with Michelle here. The advantage is the big house. Playing at home, and I know Michigan won last year in Columbus. I equate that to really bad defensive schemes, which Brandon would be the first one to admit that was the worst defensively called game he's ever seen, and you'll never see it again. But I think being at home has its advantages. And one thing that we did see last year, and it is you know, common Jim Harbaugh practice, even though he won't be on the sidelines, I think that playbook's going to open up completely. We saw a lot of things last year. Mullins with a jump pass at just an absolute crucial moment of the game last year to complete a third down play. There was just some plays that we, as Michigan fans, we didn't see all year long, and the thought was we were going to see those plays in that game. So I really feel like this week the focus is going to be on opening that playbook. The focus is going to be on J.J. McCarthy making plays with his leg. Hopefully the ankle is
Are his legs
better.
okay?
Yeah, well, like we were talking pre-show, there was rumors that he had an MRI. There was nothing definitive. He claims he's okay. He was not mentioned in any of the injuries, so I'm going to assume that he's okay, but you know what happens when you assume. But I think the one thing that they did not do last week was utilize JJ's legs. And that really made them kind of vanilla, one-tiered offense. So I think that's key. And there's a lot more juices flowing when you're at home. He gets pumped up. And I think this is a game to where you're going to see him open it up a lot. And, let's not forget last year, Donovan Edwards was not impressive at all during the regular season. But somehow with a broken bone in his hand and a cast on his hand, he decided to go crazy. And from what I gather, he's still scoring. So I think you're going to see a lot of Donovan Edwards coming out of the backfield. Now, is Ohio State going to be keen to that? Maybe. But I think when you have two running backs, that gives you the opportunity. But again, I'm nervous as hell. This game scares the crap out of me.
Why are you nervous?
Because I did not like what I saw last week. But then again, Michelle brings up that great point with Illinois. It took one of the greatest field goal kickers in Michigan history to save their ass last year. So it's kind of rinse, repeat, rinse, wash. Just get it out of your system. Just burn the game tape. Don't even look at it. So, but this is a game, and I'm going to put a comment on the screen, and we can hit on it when we mention it with Brandon. But this is a coach in Ryan Day that's playing for his Ohio State career, in my opinion.
Ooh.
Because I think the Ohio State fan base, and from what I'm seeing on Twitter, if he loses, they better have protection for him.
Isn't Heartline still there? Ready? I mean, they love Heartline.
Yeah.
No doubt about that.
Rich brings up a good point. If not to steal your thunder, Raj, but
No,
if Ryan Day gets canned, if Michigan wins, does Ryan Day lose his job? And my point being is, you got a coach that is backed up against the wall, and sometimes those players kind of gel with that. They get the back of the coach.
Brandon,
that could be a tough
question
one for Michigan.
I agree. Shane, what advantages? What do you feel good about going into this game? And no jinxes. This is a question. I know we're all lame and we're like, we don't want to jinx our team. But what do you feel good about? Where do you guys have the advantage?
What I feel good about is, the running game I saw last week. I like seeing Travion. I mean, he's in peak form right now, coming back after the injury. And, McCord, he's been serviceable at best for the most part. But if you look back at the Notre Dame game and that last drive, there's something in there, right? He's got that will to win and he can make those throws. So I look forward to that, putting in a high pressure situation that he can be calm and he can make those throws if needed. Hopefully it doesn't come to that. But look, this is one of the most evenly matched Michigan-Ohio State games I've seen in quite some time. Yeah, exactly. I was about to go through that entire
I wrote
setup
that
there.
Exact stat down.
I've got if you can look at my cheat sheet here, it's
I had the same
exact same thing. So they are so similar in their game. Obviously, eye test. McCord is quite a bit better statistically, and just eye test wise as a quarterback. We've got a better receiving core, running back we're probably slightly behind them, but defense is great on both sides. I mean, we're both averaging, giving up like around 9 points a game, like that stat showed. So, dude, this is going to be a battle, and you can throw all these stats out the window because you're going to see plays like Tom said. There's going to be plays that you haven't seen all year. There's going to be formations you haven't seen all year, and I hope to God that Jim Knowles has learned his lesson from last year
zero.
with cover zero for 3 3/7 quarters or 3 3/4. It was the worst play calling I've seen. So I was there 3 3/4 of a game. Would not get out of cover zero, and all Michigan had to do is throw the ball every time. It was it. And anyway, don't get me started going down that road. I am nervous about the game, but man, this is the game for a reason, and it is going to be awesome. So get your popcorn.
Before I get into the matchups, I want to ask Robbie, as two of us whose teams are not relevant at all. You saw those numbers that we can hate on everybody because that's what we do. But you saw those numbers about the Big Ten, about Ohio State and Michigan. Michigan being number 1 in total yards allowed in defense. Ohio State number 2. That's points allowed, rather 9 and 9.3. I think I had written down
9.27. Yeah.
Yeah. Excuse me. 9.27. Passing yards. Ohio State is number 1 at 144.4. Michigan at 144.8. Unless. Okay, thank you. I wrote it down so I could look cool. But anyways, Robbie, are these amazing defenses, or is the fact that it's the Big Ten and it's like 2 Snow Whites and 8, 9 dwarves have anything to do with this?
Here comes the SEC bias.
Well, I mean, I agree with that. Now, these are great defensive teams. The players are the players. They all go to the NFL. But you're not exactly talking about the most wide open spread offenses. And, the last, 4 or 5 X amount of years, one of these teams has hit 40 points, number 1. Number 2, look at the bowl game matchups. I mean, these were all top defenses. And I think I wrote it down, TCU hitting 51 against Michigan. Same year, Georgia 42, Ohio State 41. Year before, Georgia 34, Michigan 11, and Ohio State 48, Utah 45. They were all similar defenses. Is it just the homogeny in the Big Ten, or is it a little bit of this, a little bit of that? Because I don't think these are flat out amazing defense. Michelle's getting so pissed off.
That was a great, very condensed question you just asked me.
That's what I'm great at. That's why I'm amazing.
Yeah, no. So two
Big Ten
things.
defense, good or not as good?
So 2 things can be true, right? So Michigan and Ohio State both have good defenses, great defenses, really. They also play some bad teams. My favorite bet of every week is Iowa in the under. Because
27.5 this week.
Yeah, they just can't score. But no. Look, I think this game. So those numbers. They look. Ohio State, Michigan. They all have talent. They have NFL talent. There's nothing to knock them about. It's kind of like Gonzaga playing basketball. Like, look, they're in a weak conference or a lesser conference. They're still really good at their sport. And so I think this game is going to come into a very matchup specific thing. Like, Michigan's going to let J.J. McCarthy do his thing. Ohio State's going to try to get Marvin Harrison Jr. open. And it's going to be who does that better.
He was born open, although I
what's
love
that?
Sam Stroh. I said he was born open.
Yeah. I mean, it's gonna be can you stop the other person's strength? And then it's going to be a turnover battle, I think. And then the other thing we touched on is Ryan Day coaching for his life, or for his job, not his life. I don't think yet. I think this immediately puts him on a must-win next year in Columbus, kind of hot seat situation. But I think he can survive a road loss, even if it's without Harbaugh.
This is the last thread, though. If we lose this game, dude, it doesn't matter if you even make it to the playoffs. If you don't beat Michigan, dude, you're done.
It's a one game. Is it a one-game season now, Michelle and Tom? If you lose this game but win the championship, is there an asterisk by it in your mind, in your heart?
For Ryan Day?
No. If Michigan loses to Ohio State, but let's say it's an overtime loss, both of them get in the playoff.
Oh.
And then Michigan ends up winning the championship, but not facing Ohio State.
No,
is there an asterisk in your heart that you won the ring but lost to the Buckeyes?
No, you win the championship.
I don't know, dude. I'm with Tom here.
Really?
I don't really know what this is like, but it would kind of suck because they could always say that, right? Like, yeah, you got the ring, but we beat you.
To me, I lived through. I mean, my dad is a Buckeye. I will say this: born and raised in Ohio, he's a diehard. So I watched him through the Cooper era, and I watched him just hate life every Saturday at last Saturday in November, and then I've lived through the Tressel Urban era, and this game matters, and it means something. And winning 2, that's great. We've lost 10 out of the last 13, so this rivalry matters. And if we lose and we go back down that path that we were, the last 10 years, then this isn't a rivalry, and that's important. But I mean, obviously, winning the national championship would be amazing. But I think this game matters, and to Michigan fans, I think it matters. Not more than a national championship game.
No, but
I think if you lose it and get into the playoffs, which I highly doubt that happens.
Yeah,
it happens if you're in the SEC.
Yeah, well,
we're not
the SEC yet.
Yeah.
Nor are you, Raj.
Hey, shut up! I'm a Big Ten.
Welcome to the Big Ten, buddy.
Hey, dude, in the pack. I mean, but we deserve that. 2 things I want to do quickly. Number 1, I want to go down matchups without Robbie and I, with the 3 of you. Who has the advantage? And then I'm going to go into X factor. And what I mean by that, quarterback, running back. So are we ready? Quarterback, who has the advantage? Now I'm going to get Kyle McCord's been playing great, 3,000 yards, 22 TDs, 4 picks. JJ McCarthy a little dinged up. Chain, who has the advantage at quarterback? Ohio State or Michigan?
Michigan.
Michelle?
Michigan.
I don't have to ask.
I agree.
Running back. Now this is interesting. This is not as much of a giveaway even without Mayan Williams. Travion's been outstanding. Good offensive line coming together. Ladies first. Michelle.
Michigan.
Not even a question. Tom?
I'll say Michigan because they have 2 no-doubters. But it's close.
Kind of depends on what Donovan shows up, right? Like, and it's not just him, obviously, but Chain.
It's close.
Feel free, dude. Take stock in your boys.
State. Yeah,
boy.
I like Ohio State here.
I love their backs. Wide receiver, do I need to even ask?
No.
Okay.
No.
That may be the only one. Tight end. This is a tough one. I got to say this. Michelle, I was talking to Tom. I know Loveland is kind of the guy. Loveland, right? But Barner. I really like what I liked AJ Barner, man. What I saw from him, I saw a kid that can do a lot of different things.
Tough. He's real tough. Honestly, I think Michigan's diversity at the tight end position, similar to the running back position, I'm going to have a spicy take and say Michigan. Even though I have a ton of respect for Cade Stover.
They do a lot of 2 tight end set, and I guess the other Ohio State is G. Scott, but yeah, 2 tight ends together, I would say yeah. But Cade Stover, if not for it was my man, the coach on the field, right? Samerstill, how do you pronounce his last name?
Samerstill, Mikey.
Yeah, he's the best.
Zero.
If he did not tip that ball last year, Cade Stover catches that in the end zone. That guy is a legend. But what do you think,
say this
Tom?
about Stover. I think Cade Stover is probably one of the most underrated players in college football.
Mm-hmm.
He's big play. And when you need a big catch, he is the guy to go to. And he's got good hands. And he is 100% Ohio State Buckeye player, born to be a Buckeye. You hear him talk. He reminds me of Chris Spielman. He just has that Buckeye-ism in him, and
Good analogy.
I think he's a hell of a player and one that every Michigan defender should be scared of. But since Barner's gotten kind of into the mix, and it's only been the last 3-4 games, it's kind of changed how they handle the tight end situation. So, again, a lot like the running back situation. I think Ohio State has a slight edge, but playmaker ability, Colston Loveland has it, and Barner is tough, but Stover is man, he's a playmaker and he's a hell of a football player. So. I'll give. Go ahead.
No, I just told you. I saw a lot of fluidity, and I saw Barner as a guy that's going to be on the scene probably next year and the year after, like a very high ceiling.
Yeah.
They
do that.
That's was like
Michigan's becoming tight end.
Like, man, this guy's nasty too.
Like I said, this is one of the most evenly matched games I've seen against Ohio State, Michigan in a long time, and it's going to come down to quarterback play and offensive line play, in my opinion. And that's going to be
we're going to
turnovers, obviously. But
would you take Stover or Michigan's 2?
Oh, Stover.
Now this is a tough one because this is where, again, Pete Carroll when he got to SCs, it's all I got. I'm sorry, you're gonna have to hear these things from 20 years ago. The first thing he did was go OL DL, OL first. These two are just the epitome of those two things. Offensive line, Michelle, whose offensive line is better? I know that's a weird thing to say.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Run
go
block, pass block, overall.
The 2-time Joe Moore award-winning, nominated again for a third year, returning Zach Zipper, Trevor Keegan, Newton at center, Michigan.
That's one of those when you get an exam back in the day and you just like hand it to the press and drop it on like. Yeah,
that's how I got A pluses
like,
in college because I memorized everything. Just spit it out.
Do we even want to go further? Shane, do we have much in art? Okay.
Yeah, that's a drop the mic moment there.
Yeah, dude, that's game over. That's game over.
Yep.
Defensive line. Now, what the fuck was that guy's name, Tom?
Kenneth
Oh
Green.
my God. I mean, I've seen some dudes, but
what he did in the fourth quarter.
I was just watching him all game, and when he fucking at 380, whatever the fuck he is, when he tracked down Singleton or somebody, he didn't have the angle. He outran him, and I was like, oh my God, that's not human. Yep. You can't do that.
Well, what he did in the fourth quarter, what he did in the last few minutes of the fourth quarter Saturday to Talia, he's a machine in the middle, and
he's a freak.
They have to really get him on the field as much as they can.
Oh my God, he's got gifts that are you don't
sophomore.
see. He's
a sophomore.
That's what I'm saying. He's young, and you can tell. But some guys name drop, like Tony Gonzalez back in the day. Like some guys are different, and that motherfucker was different. When I saw him, I was just like, is that on fast like forward when he's moving? Because he's like 360 pounds.
Justin Pollenter, whatever, just shot some fires at Michigan.
Now, and let me add, he's
Pollington.
This is JP, who was on the show last week. He's the biggest Michigan man I know. And
Michigan's tackles couldn't stop a cold. Is that offensive tackles or defensive tackles or
Probably is talking about Carson
Barnhart.
Oh, that dude who's
is
he getting benched?
Yes.
We've had some injuries there. Ladarius Henderson, I think, has been injured. Then Miles Hinton went out.
Hinton's back. He'll be back Saturday.
But doesn't he just
I heard Henderson is back too.
Yeah. But JP, if you're listening, who's replacing Barnhart? Carson Barnhart. Yeah. Who's replacing Carson Barnhart real quick? If you oh, he don't like hitting either.
Everybody sucks.
Is Henderson back? I heard Henderson could be back.
He's our Michigan insider on our other podcast, so he's kind of in the know. So he's in with Sam Webb and those guys. So
I'll tell you this: I think edge can be a position that can be sort of manipulated, if you will, meaning that you can get an outside linebacker, add weight or whatnot. But with Jenkins, Rayshawn, Benny, and Kenneth Grant, I don't think I've seen a better 3 interior defense in a long time. I mean, they look like Georgia and Bama from a few years ago. Am I wrong, Chain? Are those guys just fuck mean? I mean, those are some mean dudes.
I'm sorry, what was the question? I was looking over here on the side.
You heard it. Michigan's interior defensive line.
I was told there's gonna be
no, they're good, man. It's gonna be a
I was
battle.
impressed, dude. I'm unbiased. I was like, damn.
All right. Yeah,
You guys agree?
We got a couple up sleeve. We got a couple up sleeves.
Oh, no, I know.
Taylor's boyfriend caught a touchdown tonight. So,
boy,
outstanding.
Well, number
team.
But so let me go to this
Robbie
defensive
too.
line. I'm going to go interior defensive line, Michigan. I don't think there's any question about that. But what about on the edge? Chain, Michigan, Ohio State. And if you got Ohio State, tell me who.
Jack Sawyer, maybe.
Oh, you mean a mean white dude that gets 30 sacks? I've never heard of such a thing at Ohio State.
No, I mean it's close. Like I said, I haven't really sat down and looked at stats in a long time, and I looked at last year's and this year's, and this is the closest I've seen in probably 5 or 6 years on both sides of the ball, like statistically. Now, eye test, obviously, I think Michigan has a slight edge in quarterback play. Running back's a toss-up, like I said. Defense it's good. So, I mean, you look at total passing yards given up, 144 per game each team.
But a lot of the same stats. I'm talking about
a lot of the same stats. No, I know. Sorry, I digress.
All right, let's just skip past all that. How about the X factor? Ohio State wins this game. Why? Obvious reason and not subtle reason that people didn't expect. Why does Ohio State win this game?
Ohio
I'm not
State
gonna lie, dude.
game.
You don't look very confident. Not like these two.
No, I am. I think it comes down. I think they're going to try and take away Harrison, and I think Mbuka's really going to show up here. I think Travion is going to show up on the ground when needed. He's going to have some big chunk plays, and then I think you're going to see Stover when we get in the red zone. All eyes on Marvin. I think you're going to see Stover maybe catch a score. So it's going to be tricky. It's not going to be what you've seen out of Ohio State, typical trying to get Harrison the ball. It's going to be the gloves are off here. Like this is the game. I'm telling you, dude. It's going to be.
I would expect nothing less from JP.
I would. For me personally, if Harbaugh coaches this game, I don't think it's much of a game. I'm sorry to say that, Shane. That's just my opinion.
No, it's all. I wish he was there because I don't want that to be an excuse after we win. So
I don't want to get there yet because I'm sorry. I didn't want to get a score. I just, me, I like to interrupt. And yeah, how about you two? I'm going to start with Tom and be not a gentleman. Tom, what is the X factor and what's the obvious fact? Michigan wins. Why?
Michigan wins because I think they put a lot of pressure on McCord and forces him to make mistakes. And Brandon mentioned something that's, I agree with. I think this comes down to turnovers. And I'll give you a guy who came up big last week in the fourth quarter, and that is Mikey Sanderstill, who made the one of the plays of the game last year on Cade Stover. I think he benefits from a pretty stiff Michigan pass rush, forcing McCord to kind of make some mistakes. And maybe a pick six, I don't know. But I think it comes down to who makes the less mistakes. And I don't think McCord's as mobile as Tunga Viola last week. I think that was one of the things that kind of slipped up Michigan's defense. But One mistake in this game, that's all it could take. So I think the experience in the secondary, Will Johnson didn't play his best game last week. I think he fixes that. And yeah, I agree, Brandon. I think Ibuka, he's a hell of a receiver. I think he could be a factor, but I think the depth and experience at secondary with a pass rush on McCord could be the X factor in Michigan winning.
You guys have anything else you want to add before we get down to scores?
I've got a couple.
Please knock it out.
Yeah. So one is, we saw this last year in the Ohio State-Michigan game, is that Ohio State was incredibly undisciplined. And that pattern has continued statistically into this season. Michigan is the least penalized team in college football right now. And Ohio State is in the bottom half of teams. And in big games, I mean, G. Scott came up earlier, right? We saw him headbutt somebody. It took away great field position from Ohio State and really cost them. And in an environment like this, where emotions are running super high, discipline is extremely important. Every yard
do that. You cannot. Great teams don't do that shit.
They do that. And I think teams who can keep it together and stay focused and stay disciplined have an advantage. And if I were an Ohio State fan, I would be concerned that Ohio State has not had a great track record thus far this season, and their mental game is about to be tested to the greatest extent possible on Saturday. So I think that's one X factor that not a lot of people are thinking about. The other thing I think that's going to be really important is pressure on the quarterback. Penn State had a great pass rush. McCord was only able to put up 20 in that game. 20 is not going to beat Michigan. And Michigan has a great pass rush as well. A lot of people talked about, J.J. McCarthy struggling a little bit against Penn State and Maryland. Both of them have way, way, way more sacks than Ohio State has thus far this season. I don't think Ohio State is going to be able to apply the same degree of pressure that Penn State or frankly even Maryland applied. I think JJ is going to have a little bit more freedom. And as other people pointed out, I think Michigan has quite a bit up their sleeve that they have not yet put on tape for good reason. I think we see them open the playbook. And I think the combination of those factors makes me pretty confident, not overly confident, but fairly confident that Michigan has a lot of advantages.
Now, I agree with you, but not as much in numbers, but, Ohio State is number one in the country in pass yards per game allowed. Michigan is 0.4 of a point behind that. But, if I were going to pick one player overall, it would be JTT. I mean, what he can do now.
Can you pronounce his name for us?
Yeah, as a Southern California guy who's a big fan of the Polynesian culture and lifestyle and community, Tuimolawa. Damn it.
Tuimolawa.
Yeah, you put me on the spot. When I'm in California, I should be able to pronounce that. When I'm in Tennessee, I'm just like that one guy with a lot of vowels in it. But no, Brandon, quickly, JTT, why has he not had the season that many people thought he would have?
It's a good question. I think a lot of it's been situational, and I think this is a spotlight for him in this game. I think focusing on the run here, hopefully not like last year with zero coverage, but a little better. I think he'll show up here. Look, Jim Knowles has started to get better game in and game out, and I think he's learned from his mistakes last year with this game, and I look forward to seeing what he can do defensively. Like I said, we've held teams to 9 points a game on average, and it's one of the best in the country. Michigan's right there with us, similar stats. So it's going to be a dogfight in the trenches, and I think that's where a lot of the game's going to be won. Like Tom said, maybe a turnover here or there is going to be huge in the game, but it's going to be down in the trenches for the most part.
I mean, we knew we were going to run long because this is the game, and even I didn't realize how wrapped up I would get into this game. But as a Big Ten member, I guess I'm excused. But no, man, I mean, I don't know why I'm more jazzed about this one than others. Personally, it's because there's so much unknown. Even though they run such similar offenses, and on both sides, they're so similar. But, I mean, Ohio State, I don't know on defense. They have so much talent that they could go off. You know, Eichenberg and JTT and Sawyer and that other defense, Williams. Michigan, same thing, man. I don't know what's going to happen. And I think a big difference maker personally before we get into this is, I think Tom said it, McCord is like a tree in the pocket with roots planted firmly into the earth. The guy does not move. He takes sacks. McCarthy is not that way as long as he's healthy. And I think that's going to be a big difference maker because Michigan is going to throw everything they can at them. That being said, not having Harbaugh and their linebacker coach, to me, is a bigger deal than people think. But let's go around the horn, and it's pick time. I'm going to let the Ohio State guy go last. Ladies are first, so Rob, go ahead. Boom, boom.
Hey, I'll just say this. I've had to go get my second laptop battery to even survive the show. So for everyone that's still listening, I really do appreciate you guys.
Don't be self-deprecating. This is the biggest game of the year by far. You're just mad it's not the SEC.
Hey, some could call it from lack of outlet control. I guess that's how I would phrase it. I'm gonna go Michigan 27, Ohio State 23.
So what's the spread right now? 3.5?
3.5.
That's going to be our bet your nuts. So I guess.
Oh, we're jumping.
No, we'll start with that. We're going straight into that, as Michelle knows. I don't know if she was here for bet your nuts.
No.
No, I missed it. I never had
and chauvinistic, and I apologize, but yeah, that's when we go down picks, pros in college. We pick 6 games. If you want to stick around for it, it's quick. But one of them is usually, we stick with our shitty teams like USC and Tennessee, but who gives a shit? The biggest game is Ohio State and Michigan. So, Rob, you are saying Michigan 27, Ohio State 23, and that is taking Michigan minus 3.5. All right, Miss Michelle.
Michigan 30, Ohio State 20.
I like it. 10-point margin of victory. Remember, I do caution everyone that someone has hit 40 points. 4 years in a row, Tom? Something like that?
Yes, I believe so.
Ohio
State put up 60 in 2019. So.
Oh shit! I googled it. I think earlier it was 37 degrees, partly cloudy. I believe is what I saw.
Weather shouldn't be a factor.
But that's meteorologist, and that's like 5 days away. So, is that right, Michelle? I thought that's what I saw.
I heard snow in Ann Arbor again.
Oh, I went to weather.com and they don't know shit. So,
all right.
That would affect.
Now it says 37 and sunny.
Yeah.
39 and cloudy, according to Local 4.
Doesn't change my pick. I'm going 30 Michigan, 20 Ohio State.
I love it. Tom?
I will take Michigan 34, Ohio State 28.
Ooh.
I think this game's going to put some points on the board. I really do. All bets are off.
Why is that? Turnovers, because I don't see a lot of I see running games.
The playbooks are open. This is the season. This is all the marbles, everything. And both coaches are going to lay it on the line. I think Ryan Day is going to lay it on the line. I think Harbaugh's going to have them ready because he's going to be with the team up until Saturday morning. So they're going to play. This means everything for him. So I think that's going to pump up both teams. So I just both the last two games have been high scoring. I don't see any reason to think that this game won't be the same.
I convinced myself. I thought it was going to be low scoring and ugly running the ball, but I am going Michigan 40 because somebody's got to hit 40. Ohio State 31.
Wow.
Last, Brandon Chain.
I got 37-35. Ohio State.
Yes, I love it.
And that will pose the most crazy scenario when it comes down to the college football playoff ranking. A 2-point game. Oof. Headache.
Provide an opportunity to see who gets in.
Absolutely.
Tom, what do you think? Should we go straight into Bet Your Nuts? And
Yep, let's do that real quick.
We've covered this amazing game.
Yep, we're going to start Bet Your Nuts.
Michelle, Tom's got a sweet interlude in the graphic. It's pretty dope.
It's time for Bet Your Nuts.
All right.
Yeah.
Did you like our Bet Your Nuts graphic, Michelle?
I loved it. It was inspiring.
That is the aim.
Yeah.
We inspire folks to lose money. That is our goal.
We're going to go right into it.
Yes. First game. Ole Miss, Mississippi State. What is it? The Egg Bowl? I can't remember what they call this thing.
It is the Egg Bowl.
Thursday night.
Thursday night. Thanksgiving night. Ole Miss is an 11-point favorite. Michelle.
Ole Miss. Definitely.
Yeah, we don't have to do scores. We'll just do that.
This is a revenge game. Mississippi State's down bad. Ole Miss is rolling
Mississippi State sucks, don't they?
badly.
I'm going Ole Miss as well. Tom?
I'll take Ole Miss.
Shane?
Ole Miss.
Oh, you guys are all dum-dums. This is a rivalry game at Starkville, Stark Vegas. Get the cowbells rolling. This is a typical Lane Kiffin choke game. Give me the Bulldogs.
Why? Aside from the cowbells, which are the worst thing ever invented.
Because Tennessee fans have some animosity towards Lane Kiffin. So
I don't know.
Yeah, that's when they dumped him at the altar.
Tennessee fans do. I do not. I do not care one way or the other about Lane Kiffin. I'm just saying this is the game he lays down, and this is the interim coach's last game at Mississippi State. There's going to be some energy there. Neither team has much to play for. Mississippi State wins. Wins, not covers. Wins.
Oh, they won last year. They was a great team last year, but they can't do it again.
Are we going money line here then?
Oh yeah, I'm going money line.
Damn.
Wow.
Put your money where your mouth is.
That is reckless.
It's never a problem with you. Bet you're nuts. Well, you got married, so that happened a long time ago. Sorry. Oregon State, Oregon. The Ducks are 2-touchdown favorites at home. Side note, this is an 8:30 p.m. game. This is the only thing the freaking Pac-12 gets right. Why is Michigan, Ohio State at noon? That's the dumbest shit ever.
Both schools want it that way.
I hate it.
The fans don't. I don't like it.
I hate it.
It's nothing like those places at night. I mean, it's pathetic. But anyways, Oregon State, Oregon. Let's start with Brandon Chain.
This seems a little like a trap game. You know, Oregon State close to Washington last week. Washington did beat Oregon. So with that being said, throw all that shit out the window. Give me Oregon all day. Oregon's got this. They are rolling right now. Give me Oregon.
Tom.
To me, the spread here is really high. I get it that it's in Eugene, but I like Oregon State's running game, so I think it'll keep it close. That'll kind of open up some opportunities for DJ Yu. I'm not pronouncing his last name. So I like Oregon State to cover here. Oregon's going to win, but I like Oregon State to cover.
Exact same for me. Michelle.
Same for me. Although this would be my upset of rivalry week if there is one. So let's fuck it. Oregon State money line.
Hey, tell Justin, I'll send you my cell phone number after
Money
this.
line.
We can talk.
Money line Michelle and Rob. Money line MSU.
On this one,
Robbie.
On this one, I'm with you guys. I think Oregon at home, they may be the best team in the country. I think it's close, and Oregon pulls away late to cover.
Speaking of, you said Oregon covers.
Yes.
So speaking of Oregon and their quote Heisman candidate is 4-yard dump offs that turn into 60-yard TDs. Bo Nix and his former team, the Auburn Tigers, are hosting Alabama. Now, Auburn had won 3 in a row against bad teams, and they just got their ass kicked by the New Mexico State University. Can somebody other than Michelle or Tom tell me their team name? Rob? Shane?
I know who their coach is.
New Mexico's team?
Mexico State.
Oh, New Mexico State's team? Cowboys?
I think they're the Aggies. Am I wrong? Who's their coach, Tom?
Jerry Kill, former Minnesota Golden Gopher.
Yeah, he almost.
He's the one that had a heart attack on the
The guy
sideline.
almost killed himself.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yes.
I shouldn't say
Yeah.
that. That's terrible. But anyways, 14.5.
Oh,
this is a
they're the
weird one. I
Lobos.
think this was a game that
Lobos.
Yeah, wait a minute. No, New Mexico.
You guys were so
Mexico is the
confident.
Lobos.
New Mexico's the
Aggies.
Lobos. New Mexico basketball, by the way, has Eddie House's kid and Jamal Mashburn's kid on their team. Yes, they're the Aggies. New Mexico is the Lobos. But I think this game was a trap game up until last week when Auburn just looked like dog shit. Alabama minus 14.5. I'll get it out of the way. Bama. Let's go with Michelle.
Bama.
Rob.
Alabama.
Shane.
This is easy. Bama.
Tom.
Yep. Auburn, they former Michigan State quarterback Peyton Thorne.
Boy, that
Big
guy's
stinker.
bad.
Big stinker.
They had won 3 in a row, but it was against like Arkansas, Mississippi State, Rob's favorite team, and a few others. I was keen on them until last week, where they just looked like dog shit. Next, just more games that used to be so awesome, but now are just kind of sad, like, just skip overs. But Florida State sans Jordan Travis at home minus 6.5. Vegas being Vegas. Rob, starting with you.
Gators money line.
Money line. That's an
Wow.
added
Gators have
point, by the way.
they've been tricky. They've been in a lot of games. They've lost some high scoring. This team scores more than you think they would score, how bad they are, but they're going to win this game.
Woo. Michelle, we also encourage side bets, by the way. Usually that involves Robbie wasting his money and paying us.
Come at me.
JP agrees with you there, Robbie.
Oh, hey, Michelle. Anytime, if you want to side bet, we can side bet.
Yeah, we'll throw our Venmos out later after the show.
Better than some of the weirdo
There's a reason why I have poor lighting on my screen right now, because I can't afford lighting because I lose all these side bets.
Yeah, I'm coming for you on this one.
Funny thing is, though, like I was saying real quick, Oregon transfer Trey Benson is Florida State's best player now, other than the receiver Wilson. 740 yards, 11 TDs, 119 carries. And Graham Mertz, quietly, 20 TDs and 3 picks. Wow.
He's hurt. Graham Mertz is hurt.
Did he get hurt?
He sure did. I think he broke his collarbone. So you might want to rethink that money line bet.
Oh,
But if you want to make it, I'm in. I would take Florida State, even with a larger spread. They've got something to prove. They're trying to make the playoffs. They know the odds are stacked against them. I'd take him.
I'd side bet. I'll take the point.
All right.
Interesting. Side bet. Tom, you're the official documentarian of side bets.
How much we going for?
You can put it in the chat comment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You don't have to
Yeah.
announce that.
You can internet measure, what.
We'll connect offline.
Yeah.
And yeah, Tate Rodemaker.
Some Ohio State player tried to, or not player, some Ohio State fan tried to bet me feet picks on the game.
Oh God.
Welcome
to Twitter and being a young lady.
Hey,
Hey,
we're not
don't
there
don't
yet.
judge us.
Yeah,
don't
so
judge us by our worst
You can
specimen.
take my money.
Money
I'll
or
never
some
get my
kind of-
feet. Take my money.
Some other kind of
You just judge the gender. Don't judge Ohio State. Twitter. Anyways, Rodemaker, by the way, 376 yards, 5 TDs, no picks. Does that matter? Who am I up to? Wait, Michelle had Florida State, correct?
Hell yeah.
Rob has Moneyline Florida. Tom.
I think Florida covers. Florida State wins, but Florida's going to cover.
Exact same for me.
Same.
Last one, Brandon Chain.
Yep, exact same.
I'm the only one on Florida State, huh? All right, let's go.
Oh,
you're going to get Rob's money for free, so don't worry about that one. Arizona State. It turns out my Trojans' best win of the year was a game. I was at Dodger Stadium. We were getting our ass kicked in the playoffs by the Diamondbacks, so I went to the Coliseum. SC was up 40-something to like 14. The final was 43-42. I did not think that would be our best win of the year, but it was. Arizona is an 11-point favorite at Arizona State, who somehow beat UCLA, really without a quarterback, who just beat my SC team. Welcome to Pac-12 life. Thank God we are dissolving. Tom, does Arizona State cover that, 11 or 11 and a half?
It's 11.
11.
Not only do they cover, I think they win by 3 touchdowns. This team's rolling. They've won 4 in a row. Jed Fish has absolutely turned that program around. I love it. Must-see TV. Yeah, big time. There'll be a very pro-Arizona crowd, even though it's in Arizona State. So give me the Wildcats.
Something tells me if you have another dog again, like your 18th, it would be named Jed Fish. You love that dude. Michelle.
I don't know. Arizona State has been scrappy. They've created problems for a lot of people this season. 11 is just too big of a spread for me. I think Arizona gets the win, but I think Arizona State keeps it close.
Totally agree. I don't think Arizona knows what it's like to be an 11-point favorite and have the target on their back. I think they win, but I think ASU manages to cover. Chain.
Got to side with Tom here. I think Arizona covers this. Maybe not by 3 touchdowns, but I could see a 14-point win here.
Excellent. Robert?
I'm not sure I've got an Arizona or Arizona State game, either of them, all season right. So I've got to.
12 after dark.
Yeah, this has been tough for me. If I have to go between Tucson and Tempe, I'm going Tempe all day, giving the Sun Devils just because I love Tempe, Arizona. So
another place with mad voodoo. You know that, especially at night.
Are
you going money line? Is Arizona State winning this outright?
No. I'll take.
They'll get crazy.
Hey, last time I was in Tempe, I flew out from Vegas to Phoenix for.
Is this a PG show, bro?
So I was in Vegas for a weekend. Flew out to Phoenix for the Vols Gonzaga game, 9 a.m. or tip. I went to Tempe. I was like dozing off at the bar at probably 10 p.m. or whatever, and the bartender or the bouncer was like, "You got to go," and I was like, "Thank you. Someone's got to tell me that. Yes, I do have to go. Yes, I'm out of here."
This has been a lot of fun, and I love that we get into everything. And Michelle, this was a fun night, but this is when we usually derail around this mark, as Robbie just gave us another kicked out of the bar story. This one's not as interesting as the usual ones, but that being said, since we're at the 2-hour mark, fuck it. I'm going to ask this. The playoff, the final 4 teams, I'm putting everybody on the spot. What 4 teams are in the playoff? And I'm going to go with, let's get Rob out of the way. Are you ready?
Georgia. Oh, wait, hold on. Let me preface this. You guys are going to hate this. Georgia, Alabama, Michigan, and Washington.
I can't believe I'm about to say this, but I agree entirely with that.
Oh, yes.
Although Oregon may have something to say about it, but I fucking hate them. So I agree 100%. I think Bama sneaks in. Chain.
I've got Georgia, Ohio State, Texas, and Oregon.
Love it. I love it. Tom?
This is so tricky because I don't want to put two SEC teams in.
I know how you guys are about
jinxing. You know it, Tom. You know they're getting in.
This is just for fun. I'm Indian, so karma is part of me. I'm the authoritative voice on this. This does not count towards karma. You will not jinx yourself.
I got Michigan.
You've been absolved.
Michigan going to win the Big Ten, I think. Mm-hmm. Oregon wins the Pac-12. Texas is going to get in with the Big 12. Oh, and do they put a 2-loss Alabama?
Well, you said Michigan, Oregon, Texas.
Oregon, Texas.
Well, no,
that would mean.
I'm sorry.
That would mean Georgia would lose the SEC championship, and Bama
I'm going Georgia. I'm sorry. So I'm going to go Georgia number 1, Michigan number 2, Oregon 3, Texas 4.
And it's going to get better. Michelle.
I think it's going to be a clean playoff picture. Georgia, Michigan, Washington, Florida State.
Wow.
Chalk.
Now, Florida State has
chalk there. Huh?
2 games remaining.
I can't wait for our side bet, Michelle. I can't wait.
So Florida State would play Florida, and then they would play in the ACC championship against Louisville in Charlotte? Where is that game? Anyone?
Yeah, it's in Charlotte.
I think it's going to be clean. Although if I had to, now I'm reconsidering Washington, and I kind of want to 7 Oregon, but I had Washington early in the season.
Stick with
and
it.
I trust my football intuition. It's generally strong.
I trust yours as well. Stick
with it. I'm telling you guys, it's going to be Alabama and Georgia getting in.
Real quick before we get into final words, and I'm not going to say anything, so we'll be quick with that too. National champion. You're not held to this. This is just right now, off the cuff. Michelle, you went last, so you get to go first. National champion, UGA, Michigan, Washington, or Florida State?
Michigan.
Yeah. Tom, Michigan, Oregon, Texas, UGA.
It pains me to say this, but I think Georgia's hot. They're rolling.
Respect. Chain, Georgia, Ohio State, Texas, Oregon.
Georgia's hot, but we have a little revenge from last year. Marvin Harrison will not get injured, and we will beat Georgia in the national championship.
I thought you were
They'll call it targeting.
Rob, Georgia, Bama, Michigan, Washington.
God damn it. I think Alabama's going to win it again.
I was in verbatim. I'm thinking, God damn it. I think Alabama's going to find a way. All right. That's our show. Anybody have final words? We went pretty long. I can't wait for this one, man. This is a crapshoot. I don't know what's going to happen, where, and why. The funny thing is, one argument you make for one team winning, you can make the same exact argument for the other team winning. Yeah. So I don't really know. I know it's going to be someone like Mikey S., one of those smart players coming up with one of those magical plays. The question is, which team has more of those plays, Ohio State or Michigan? Anyone have anything else to add?
Go blue.
I feel like it's going to be, one of those games. Michigan's probably the favorite that everyone's picking, especially Michigan fans, and it's going to be like last year where we thought we were the favorite. We should have won the game. Blah blah blah. We're going to surprise the people. So.
You were favored the last 2 years, and you got your asses handed to you in a hand.
We were, but as an eye test, Michigan has looked better overall as a whole this year. Consistently.
To remind everyone, every one of us picked Michigan -3.5, except Brandon Chain, who had a 37-35 score, I believe. I wrote it down. This is going to be a good one. Fuck you, Fox and NCAA for putting it at noon. That's 9 o'clock West Coast time, which I have a red eye Friday night, so I'm going to land in Chattanooga at like 8:30. So I'm excited about that.
My final thoughts are, everyone, it's feast week. This is the great weekend of college basketball. So turn on the channel and watch college basketball. It's so good this week. So many great matchups. Oh, I took off work at 2 o'clock today to watch UT play.
Hey,
I'm with you, dude, but like, let's do it after.
We're not there yet.
That's the game of the year.
No, we're not there yet. Bro.
Any last words?
This is a good college basketball week.
Yes.
That's so Robbie. That is so Robbie.
That is so Robbie.
This is where our dreams lie.
What a great college basketball week we're having. It's rivalry week in football.
Somewhere else.
It's like, let's turn to college basketball.
All right.
It's going to be great.
Michelle, I'm like the token soccer guy in the group chat, but just college basketball.
Michelle, this is the 2-hour point, and the rest of America knows where everyone but Tom derails. So on that note, for myself, Brandon Chain of the Ohio State Buckeye Nation, Robert Davis of college basketball's Maui Invitational, myself, Tom Sloan, and Michelle, go Blue versus go Buckeyes.
We'll see you.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for watching.
Hey, go Vols, Maui Invitational.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Reckless Speculation. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube searching Reckless Speculation. Catch us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. We look forward to catching you right here next week with another exciting episode of Reckless Speculation.